One evening at a Portuguese resort, 3 years of innocence vanished in an instant. Madeleine McCann never returned home. May 2007, Portugal. The seaside town of Praia da Luz, a place where time seemed to stand still. White villas, the blue ocean, the smell of salty air and orange trees. Tourists came here to forget their problems, to relax, to feel safe. It was here that the McCanns decided to spend their vacation. Kate and Jerry McCann, an ordinary British couple, both doctors, both successful. 3 children, 3-year-old Madeleine and twins Amelie and Sean, who were not yet 2, the perfect family in the perfect place. They stayed at the Ocean Club complex. Comfortable apartments, a pool, a restaurant, and company, 9 adult friends who came together. In the evenings, they would gather to have dinner at the tapas restaurant, literally 40 meters from the apartments. May 3rd, Thursday. The day began like any other vacation day. Beach, sun, children splashing in the water. Madeleine, lively, curious, with big blue eyes, ran and laughed. She loved to dance, loved to draw, loved asking why endlessly. In the evening, the parents put the children to bed. The time, around 7:30. Madeleine fell asleep, the twins too. The room was quiet. The doors were closed, but not locked. And here begins what would later be called the most fatal decision. The adults went to dinner. They agreed to check on the children every 30 minutes. There were no monitors. The children had no phones either. Only the silence of the apartments and brief checks between glasses of wine and conversations about work. At 9:05 p.m., Jerry McCann checked the children. Everything was calm. At 9:30 p.m., his friend Matthew Oldfield peeked into the room. Everything was quiet. The twins were asleep. He did not go to Madeleine's bed. He just listened to the silence and left. At 10 p.m., Kate McCann went up to the apartments, and she froze. The door to the children's room ajar, not the way she had left it. A brief breeze moved the curtain. Madeleine's bed empty. Kate McCann screamed so loudly that she was heard in the restaurant. "They took her! Someone took Madeleine!" That scream divided time into before and after, and triggered one of the largest searches in the history of Europe.
Do you know what detectives say? The first 48 hours after a disappearance are the golden hours. If nothing is found during that time, the chances drop sharply. And here the clock was ticking, each second counting down something terrifying. The Portuguese police arrived quickly, but within the first minutes it became clear. Something was wrong. The crime scene, apartment 5A, was not properly secured or preserved. People came and went, friends of the family, neighbors, police without gloves. Potential evidence disappeared right before their eyes, trampled and destroyed before the forensic work even began. Where was the perpetrator? How did he get in? They examined the bedroom window. The blinds were raised. On the windowsill, a trace, a single trace, resembling a shoe print. Someone could have climbed out of the window, or climbed in, or maybe the children had raised the blinds themselves. They checked the front door. Not broken, lock intact. They questioned the neighbors. One of them, Jeremy Worthington, would later recall seeing a man carrying a child across the street at around 9:15 p.m. The child was in pajamas. The man was walking quickly. He didn't look back. But at that moment, this witness did not call the police. He assumed it was just a father carrying a sleepy child. This decision would haunt him for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, the parents were in shock. Kate was holding Madeleine's toy, an old plush cat that the girl always carried with her. It remained. Madeleine did not. The police began a search. The beach, the bushes, the surrounding buildings. Nothing, not a single trace. The next day, the British media got involved, and then what can be called a media bomb began. A photograph of Madeleine showing her distinctive eye defect, a coloboma where the pupil extends into the iris, spread around the world. Her face appeared on front pages of newspapers in dozens of countries. The Madeleine Search Fund raised millions of pounds in just a few days. People responded from all over the world. Sightings of Madeleine came from Morocco, Spain, the Netherlands, even Australia. But the Portuguese police were working by their own rules, and soon they were looking not only at an unknown kidnapper, they began to look at the parents.
Among the Portuguese detectives, there was one who thought differently from the others. Gonçalo Amaral, an experienced investigator, tough, stubborn, someone who doesn't believe in coincidences. And he noticed details that others ignored. First, the behavior of the parents. Kate McCann, after her daughter's disappearance, did not cry publicly the way, in Amaral's opinion, a mother should have. She was composed, controlled, gave interviews, posed for photos with yellow ribbons, symbols of the campaign. Amaral interpreted this in his own way: coldness, detachment, like a person who knows more than they say. Second, the sniffer dogs. In August 2007, British canine experts brought two specially trained dogs: Eddie, trained to detect the scent of blood, and Keela, trained to detect the scent of decomposition. What happened next shocked everyone. Eddie reacted to the smell of blood in apartment 5A, behind the sofa and near the wall. Keela reacted to the smell of decomposition, in the same location and later in the McCanns' rented car. A rented car, which the McCanns took 25 days after Madeleine disappeared. Amaral drew his conclusion. The child was dead, and the parents knew it. In September 2007, Kate and Jerry McCann were granted arguido status, suspects under Portuguese law. This meant they had the right to remain silent during questioning, and Kate exercised that right. She answered none of 48 questions. The press went wild. But lawyers explained, in the Portuguese system, arguido simultaneously means both suspect and person under protection. It is not a charge, and the lawyer's recommendation to remain silent is standard legal advice. Meanwhile, the investigation hit a dead end. The only DNA profile found in the car matched Madeleine on only 15 out of 19 markers. A laboratory in the United Kingdom issued a conclusion: insufficient evidence. The obtained DNA could have belonged to any one of 40 people in Portugal. In July 2008, the case was closed. The McCanns were officially removed from the list of suspects. Amaral wrote a book. He called it The Truth of the Lie. He claimed that Madeleine was dead and that the parents had concealed her death. The McCanns filed lawsuits. Legal battles lasted for years. Portuguese courts sometimes banned the book, sometimes allowed it again. And Madeleine has still not been found.
Every detective story relies on witnesses, but in this case, the witnesses were not answers. They were new questions. Witness 1, Jane Tanner, a friend of the McCanns. That evening, around 9:15 p.m., she was walking back to the restaurant and saw a man. He was carrying a child. The child was wrapped in a blanket or something similar. The man, dark-haired, medium height, wearing jeans. Later, she would say she thought it was one of the parents carrying the child to bed, so she didn't pay attention. But then, when she learned about the disappearance, she realized this moment could have been crucial. Witness 2, Robert Murat, a Briton living in Praia da Luz. He appeared at the crime scene the next morning, voluntarily, to help translate for the police. He spoke Portuguese, he knew the area, and he immediately drew attention. One of the witnesses, Ian O'Brien, stated that she saw Murat near the apartments that evening. He also received arguido status. His house was searched. Nothing was found. Computers, phones, everything was checked. A year later, acquitted. Witness 3, Martin Smith, an Irish tourist. That evening, around 9:55 p.m., he and his family saw a man carrying a child, a girl, in pajamas. The man, no child equipment, nothing in his hands except the child. He was walking quickly. And here's the detail that changed everything. A few months later, Martin Smith saw on television Jerry McCann exiting a plane carrying one of the twins in his arms, and he felt something strange, something he couldn't explain rationally. He told the police the way the child was held, the walk, the silhouette, it all reminded him of that figure in the dark. He wasn't 100% certain, but he reported it. This moment, one of the most controversial in the entire case. Witness 4, Kritzia Rebar, a Portuguese woman who cleaned the apartments. She saw Madeleine that day, during the afternoon, alive and well. But she also noticed the blinds in the bedroom were open. The McCannans later said the blinds were usually closed. Someone had opened them. When? Why? To check the room from the inside? To prepare? The puzzle didn't fit together. Each new witness added details, but the overall picture did not become clearer. It became even darker.
Years passed. The McCann case had gone cold. The police continued to receive tips, thousands from all over the world. Each one was checked. None produced results. Then, in 2020, everything changed. The German prosecution made an official statement. They have a suspect, and they are confident that he is the killer. Christian Brueckner, 43 years old at the time of the announcement, a career criminal with a long criminal record, theft, fraud, drug trafficking, sexual offenses against children and women. He was living in Portugal in 2007, including in the Praia da Luz area. Detectives tracked him via his mobile phone. His number was active in the network near Praia da Luz on the evening of May 3, 2007. His van, a yellow Volkswagen, was seen in the area. Later, police found people who had seen it and remembered it. Items were found in Brueckner's possession: a woman's watch, a swimsuit, binoculars, objects he apparently kept as trophies. Among them were items that could have belonged to victims. But the most chilling detail was something else. One of the people Brueckner interacted with at that time gave testimony. Brueckner boasted about what he had done, described the apartment, talked about the child, said things that only someone who had been there would know. The problem? This testimony is unofficial, and Brueckner refuses to speak. At all. Not a single word. He is sitting in a German prison for the rape of an American tourist in Portugal in 2005. 7-year sentence. He knows that silence is his only protection. In 2022, new court hearings began. The prosecution claimed they know what he did, but a court is not the same as knowledge. The court needs evidence. And here again appears the same word that has haunted this case from the beginning. Not enough. Brueckner was not officially arrested in the Madeleine case. No formal charges were filed. Prosecutors say they know. Defense lawyers say it's empty words. And where Madeleine is remains unknown.
The McCann case became one of the most studied in the amateur detective community. Millions of people around the world examined documents, maps, testimonies, forums, YouTube channels, podcasts. All of it is still alive today. And from all of this, theories were born. Some logical, some from the dark corners of human imagination. Theory 1. Accident and cover-up. The most common among skeptics. Madeleine woke up at night, fell, got injured. Death by accident. The parents, both doctors, realized it could not be reversed, and they made a decision that any psychologist would call a classic trauma response. Hide it and pretend nothing happened. Supporters of this theory point to the reaction of the sniffer dogs, to Kate's silence, to certain logistical details that, in their opinion, do not add up. But this theory crashes against one question. Where is the body? If the McCanns concealed their daughter's death, where did they hide the child? In a country where they were strangers? Where they didn't know the language? Where they had no connections? Within 48 hours before the police fully secured the area? Theory 2. Organized network. Darker, more frightening. Madeleine was not taken by chance. She was a target. an organized criminal network dealing in child trafficking. Praia da Luz, a resort area with a constant flow of tourists, the perfect place. This theory explains the speed of the disappearance. No trace, no mistake. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. Theory 3. Lone predator. This theory fits Brueckner's profile, a serial offender acting alone, watching the apartment, knowing the schedule, taking advantage of a window of opportunity, literally and figuratively. But there is a fourth theory, the one people are ashamed to speak aloud. What if Madeleine is alive? The child who was 3 years old in 2007 would now be over 20. She would have grown up. She might not know her true identity. There are documented cases where abducted children were found decades later. Elizabeth Smart, J.C. Dugard, Claudine Dart. They returned, alive. This glimmer of hope is the only thing the McCanns hold on to.
Today, 2024, Madeleine McCann would have turned 21. The case is officially open in 3 countries, the United Kingdom, Portugal, and Germany. The British police, Scotland Yard, have spent over £13 million on the investigation under the codename Operation Grange. Over 60,000 documents, over 8,000 leads, hundreds of interviews. Gonçalo Amaral, the same detective who was dismissed in 2008, still believes in his version of events. He has written a new book, gives interviews, lives in his truth. The McCanns, to this day, have not given up publicly. Their website is active. Their foundation is active. Kate McCann says she will never stop searching for her daughter. Christian Brueckner, in prison, still silent. And between all of them, a void in the shape of a little girl with blue eyes. But here's what really keeps people awake, what keeps this case alive even 17 years later. Crimes leave traces, always. Even the most experienced criminal makes a mistake. One, small, unnoticed at the time of the crime, but one that is revealed years later. In the McCann case, that mistake may already exist in the case files, somewhere in those 60,000 documents, in a witness statement that was dismissed, in a phone call that was tracked but not understood. Technology changes. DNA analysis in 2024 can decode what was inaccessible in 2007. Brueckner's digital trail still under analysis. And there is one more detail, the one rarely spoken about. Among the case materials is a record of a phone call, anonymous, made a few weeks after Madeleine's disappearance. The voice, male. He says, "The girl is alive. Look where you are not looking." The call could not be traced, the number blocked. A provocateur? A real informant? Or the criminal himself playing games? No one knows. But there is one more point, the one that silences even the most skeptical detectives. A few months before Christian Brueckner's prison term ends, and he's due to be released soon, prosecutors stated that they are preparing new actions. What does this mean? New evidence? New witnesses? Or just words? No one says it aloud, but those close to the case say one thing. Something is happening, something that has not yet been made public. Perhaps the truth is closer than ever. Perhaps it is already knocking on the door.
You have just heard one of the most terrifying real detective stories of our time. The Madeleine McCann case is not just about the disappearance of one child. It is a mirror reflecting everything, the imperfections of police systems, the cruelty of the media, and the human tendency to seek simple answers to complex questions. This case has shown that sometimes the scariest thing is not knowing, living in uncertainty, day after day, year after year. Kate and Jerry McCann still live in that uncertainty. Their home still has Madeleine's room, her belongings, her photographs, and somewhere in this vast world, the truth. It exists. Someone knows it. Maybe one person, maybe several.
And if that person ever decides to speak, or if science takes another step forward, this case could be closed as suddenly as that window opened in Praia da Luz on that May night. If this video made you think, give it a like. If you want to learn about other unsolved cases, subscribe. The next story will be even deeper. But before you close this video, think about one thing. Madeleine McCann would now have her life, her dreams, possibly her own family, her own children. Every unsolved case is not just a case. It is someone's life cut short or still hanging by a thread of uncertainty. We are obliged to remember, the case is not closed.